Oh, hey. I hope you all are having a fantastic day. Pardon me sounding a little bit like tired, because I am. I'm old, not old, but I got bad sleeping habits. I be up all night. My bad. I be up all night. I be thinking like crazy. Not in like a panicky kind of way, but just overall, I be having like a lot of stuff on my mind that I want to do. And I got up today with intent to kind of push out this video because I actually wanted to do it before the trial got started so that I could put some stank on it or put some emphasis on my predictions about what's going to happen. So needless to say, this is about Milagro and Megan and them being at this point of talking about this defamation case and really like ironing out what's going to happen, what's not going to happen, and so on and so forth, right? There are plenty of people that have gone over the charges and what's being presented. Oh my goodness, I'm very sorry. First of all, thank you to each and every one of you that have checked out my previous work and you guys are enjoying it. The views, the likes, the comments, per usual, the subscribers. It's so good to have you here. I'm so grateful that you are enjoying the content. And hopefully, again, I can just keep my foot on the gas. We coming to the end of the semester, so I'm feeling really good about it. I'm super stoked about it, actually. And I actually got to pick my next set of classes and all of those things, but enough of that stuff. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate you. And I hope this is the kind of palate cleanse that you're looking for. But let's get into this Megan and Milagro thing. So, as y'all know, I'm not a lawyer by any means. I'm not giving out any legal advice. But, I expressed to y'all that I do psychology. HR is my background, and I did my SHRM certification and all that other stuff. So I got a little bit of knowledge about like things like employment law. So just in the space of having that experience and what I've done in the past, what I've seen in the past, how I've learned to interpret law in that space, I'm integrating into this space and talking about it, and we just talking smack. So again, by no means am I giving you legal advice or telling you that I got this right. I'm just establishing or having a conversation with y'all about what I think is happening and what to expect moving forward, right? So, um, we're about at the halfway point. From what I'm seeing, I'm following Megan Cuniff because I really appreciate the fact that she's actually there. And I think that as a journalist, she has been really good at being impartial, right? And she also goes back and acknowledges when she might have misinterpreted something or where she saw that there was a mistake in the prosecution or in the defendant. Like she goes back and she goes over all of her points and pieces. So I think that that's fantastic, right? So somebody that I feel like has a relatively well established understanding of what's going on and is paying attention to the nuance of the trial, like the individual experience that's happening to, say, Megan, how Milagro handles herself and that sort of thing. So we're going to probably touch a little bit on that psychology thing just a bit, but I really want to get into the weeds of what we're seeing here and why I think this is so interesting. So, based on what I'm seeing, and based on the depositions that have come out, it looks like Milagros' team is relying on that plausible deniability, naivete kind of thing, right? Like, oh, I just didn't know. And, you know, I think that an important part to understand and acknowledge with the pursuit and the sticking of these charges is the establishment or the proof of intent. And so what happens is that proving someone's intention can get it complicated when you're talking about things like defamation. And what I compare this to, as far as I'm concerned, right, like, or my experience aligns with this idea of, say, a discrimination case, right? Like, so when we have discrimination cases, it's not often that you're going to have somebody like outwardly call somebody a derogatory term. It's not often that you have an employee that's just like, yeah, I'm firing you because you're pregnant. It's usually an implication, right? It's usually a series of actions and behaviors and emails and so on that leads to your ultimate demise. And it is implied that it's based on something that is a protected class under employment law, right? So I'll give you a quick example. Like, I worked at a place and someone that I worked closely with was pregnant. And this was right around the pandemic. Short version of it is she's like, yo, I just found out. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. And I'm like, yo, just tell the people because, you should be able to go and get assistance and all this other stuff. Long story complicated. Yo, she told them she was expecting. I think she was fired maybe like a week later, quite literally, right? And she filed the case and she won. right? Because again, it's not that they ever said that we're firing you because you're pregnant. As a matter of fact, they really tried to make the argument that it wasn't because of that. But the implication is that you have experienced this hardship because at the heels of you saying this statement to them, you then have this adverse action taken against you. So there's no expectation of mine that Milagro is ever going to get on the stand and just be like, yeah, by the way, like I hate this and I did all of this stuff and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think that that's going to be the game. But what I think she's trying to do is portray herself in a certain way, again, in this space of naivete, because that's the best that her team could do, which is why they were trying to shift from defamation per se to defamation something else. And essentially it was like you have to prove that what she said, because that was the shift. When it's defamation per se, the idea is that all you have to do is defame somebody. You just have to say something bad about them, and that's that. But if you get the other version of defamation that I can't think of right now, it requires that you attach the statements of that person and how it directly impacted your losses, right? So instead of that implied notion that happens in defamation per se, they want direct relationship. They want you to be able to point from 1 to 2 to say that this is the reason and this is how, which was a pretty good tactic on Mill's lawyer's side, but the judge wasn't having it. Because it's like, yeah, we're not doing all of this semantic stuff. We're not playing this game because what you're trying to do is create more nuance. So pay attention to this notion of creating enough confusion in the space to try to hide Milagro behind like the cloud of maybe they won't see me, right? Kind of stuff. So further, you have Milagro presented herself a certain sort of way, right? So she's talking to the jury and everything else. And she went through this whole thing with Jasmine Sullivan. As a matter of Jasmine Sullivan, Lord, get it together. With O'Sullivan, which is Megan's lawyer. And Megan Cuniff actually reported that she's not sure how well it's going for O'Sullivan based on the fact that it's just giving Milagro the opportunity to tell her story.
Started testifying yesterday, and she's still on the stand today. She answered questions all this morning from John O'Sullivan, Megan's lawyer. She'll be back at 1:30 after lunch, and I think she could be on the stand all day. And I'm not sure how well it's going for John O'Sullivan in that he seems to want Milagro to just admit that she knew that Tori shot Meg. But Milagro's never going to do that, and she's not doing that now. It's just kind of giving her an opportunity to talk and tell her story about why she believed this, why she believed that. So it's really been going on for a long time.
My perception of what that lawyer or what Megan's lawyer is actually doing is giving her rope. Because what happens is that when she sits on the stand and she starts to talk about herself in a certain sort of way and she tries to remove herself from responsibility, that conversation about who she is and she's not this person that's malicious, it's going to be hard to prove that untrue once they start to push out the evidence and show, say, the station heads and the IG post and all of the different things, right? Because the evidence is going to show a different version of her. And the reason that I think that that is very, very tricky is because once the jurors see her in that pendulum, she runs the risk of them not believing her at all and them simply not liking her. And in this kind of case where you are proving character, that is costly. But again, that's just, my hunch on it. I think that that's a risk and that's not a good idea. And not to mention that, going into this space and suggesting that Meg's tears are invalid and that listening to Milagro curse is not a representation of the facts. I'm like, but that's the nature of this case. So to ask the jurors to dismiss that or act like it's not important, I don't know if that's the right approach, because to me, that is minimizing, which is an extension of perpetual abuse, like that post-separation abuse that we were talking about previously, right? This is already the problem that Megan is having. So to make that your strategy, I don't know if that angle is a great angle in the long run. In the beginning, we've seen this happen before. In the beginning, it looks like the right strategy, but over time, it kind of gets complicated, right? So the other part of this conversation that's important, this was also Tory's opportunity to, protect Black women, as he told Jason Lee. And we're going to get into that a little bit later too. If he would have had the conversation or deposed in his deposition, spoke to the fact that, yeah, nah, like I told Milagro that I didn't do it. And this is what makes it worse. Because if he were to admit that he told Milagro that he didn't do it, Milagro's passion would probably leave room for grace. Because then at that point, it's like, oh no, she did all of this because she genuinely believed that he didn't do it. But the fact that all of these people have been deposed, all of them have corroborated that they've worked together, talked to each other, done business, and so on and so forth. But none of them, not Aiden, not Livingston, not Milagro, not Tory, not a single one of them have confirmation or a statement from Tory saying, no, Tory told me he didn't do it. None of them are corroborating that. And this is where it gets particularly problematic because it becomes that deflection technique. And again, this is the perpetuation of abuse that I think can be a stain for Milagro, to say the least. So, with that being said, Milagro's tactic to kind of talk in circles, because there was a mention that the jurors were confused and they didn't know the relationship between Tory and this one and that one. Like they didn't understand the names and it was a lot of information and so on and so
I
forth.
am not sure how much the jury is really following this stuff. It's just a bunch of people they've never met, and it really gets in the weeds on all this social media banter. And one juror actually asked this morning if they could get clarity on who these people are, who their relationships are. This juror was confused about who Tony Lanes was, and Daystar is Tony. They were confused about who Kelsey is, who the dad is, and they didn't get an answer in public court, but the judge reminded the attorneys of this before they broke for lunch. Just said, hey, remember, the jury is a little confused here. So we'll see how this keeps going. But right now, the trial is already looking like it's going to be way too long. It should be over this Friday, and they're saying it might not be over until next Wednesday.
Again, I think that that's a part of Meg's team's strategy because on the surface, it's supposed to be confusing because the bystanders, right? Like, even if you look at social media, most people never made the connection that all of these people was working together. It genuinely looked like a bunch of people that had a single one standing opinion and they all just happened to agree. That is on purpose. That is intentional. As an effective smear campaign goes unnoticed. And this is the part that gets really interesting. So as the lawyers step further into the trial and they start to clear things up, and once the jurors come to those paces of like, wait a minute, so they were cool and they were talking and that was when that starts to unpack, that's problematic. I hope y'all don't hate my stomach growling. That's crazy. So I am looking forward to seeing what happens here, right? Because again, this idea that you can use reasonable doubt or plausible deniability in every single case, right? Because Tory, Livingston, Aiden, Mill, they all use the same exact strategy. But the problem is, one, when y'all work together, you can overwhelm. This is literally like they were jumping Meg, and now she getting a one-on-one and everybody got an attitude. I love to see the switch. I love to see the switch of the narrative of, oh, she's just using her money and she just bullying and she just this, she just that. And I'm like, yeah, a couple weeks ago, y'all was talking about her hate is justified. Y'all was talking about when she made the claim about like botting, right? And that kind of BS. Everybody was like, oh, people just hate you in real life. What happened? What happened? Oh, she must be paying the judges. So now there's this shift in the narrative again, right? And again, one of the things that I struggle with the most is the need to be right. Not personally. I'm a person that I try my best to be open to the fact that I could get something wrong because I know the more you learn, the more you recognize you can get wrong. And so the part that Tory, Livingston, Aiden, Milagro, what they missed is that their arrogance and their self-righteousness is what told on them, is what made their intentionality transparent to everybody else, or at least to the majority. Because of course, the fans that come online because they're looking for validation, they're not coming here to form or discuss an opinion in variability. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm back. I'm technically on the clock, so forgive me. So we're going to go back to that discussion of, the egos and the self-righteousness kind of share the clarity on actual intent, right? So let's get into how this case is reported, for instance. And at this point, I've kind of given y'all my feedback on, on the case and where I expect it to go and the strategy and so on. This is just about the meat and potatoes of how I got to this thinking, right? So let's take a look at Jason Lee, right? Because I did not realize how much of an antagonist he was until I went back and I was like, oh, he literally been out here wilding for a little minute. And I remember him being the voice of disdain for Meg. But let's take a look at it, even down to how it's reported. This particular screenshot shows like the day one details, like just small nuance things. And notice what Jason includes in the post that has been reshared amongst several platforms. You don't think that that's odd? So the problem is that his dislike for her is evident. And I don't know if it's more the dislike for her than it is for his need to be right. Like, I don't know which one, but the combination of the two yields this perfect culmination of, I'm just going to continue to talk smack about her. I'm going to continue to smear her. Hence the examples we have here.
Megan Thee Stallion is back clout chasing a prisoner. She's getting a restraining order against the guy who allegedly shot her. Megan Thee Stallion has been granted a restraining order against Tory Lanez, who's currently serving a 10-year sentence at the California Correctional Institution, a supermax facility in Tallahatchie. Now, in December 2022, Tory, as you know, was convicted in Megan's 2020 shooting. He was found guilty with a semi-automatic firearm, having a loaded and unregistered firearm in a vehicle, and discharging the firearm with gross negligence. Now, about a month ago, Megan and her attorneys requested that her temporary order from last November be extended. Megan's accusing Tory of subjecting her to repeated trauma and re-victimization, further claiming that his alleged continued harassment has caused her severe emotional distress and reputational harm. Now, in the filing, Tory is being accused of harassing Megan on social media and enlisting third parties to do the same. Megan accuses Tory of having blogger Milagros bully, harass, and further victimize her online. Now, I will say, I know Tory. Tory and Milagros were allegedly business partners or going into business together. And I'm sure it was to somehow further his agenda of getting his narrative out there. But all celebrities do that. Megan, there was a small period of time where she was wanting to build with me, but her alcoholism and the all ongoing attacks of EJ King and all the different things that she was doing to me, reporting on them, strained that relationship. So we've since moved on since there. But why are you getting a restraining order against Tory? Didn't she just drop a whole documentary where she talked about Tory in the whole interview? Tory's team is firing back. Call cap on the whole situation. Now, she called cap on her claiming that he's had zero contact with her directly. Now, Tory's legal team instead accuses Megan and her team of using millions of dollars in large corporations to weaponize the justice system to further tear down Tory, who maintains his innocence in the shooting. Now, despite Tory being in a supermax and fighting back, a judge said Megan's team has provided enough evidence to grant her a full restraining order until January 2030. Is Megan the problem?
Tory said to me, hold on. Tory Lanez. Let me go back to the pre-stabbing dates. Hold on.
Oh, God.
Tory Lanez. Okay. In a text message between Tory and I said, yo. He said, what's good? I said, how you surviving that bullshit? Wish we could have sat down before you left. Because me and him hung out with Madonna when they were messing around. Don't believe me? Take a look at this photo. I said, do you have a number? He said, what's yours? Let me move on to the text messages now. Then we started to text message each other. I said, how are you? How you been? He said, incredible, in very high spirits and preparing to physically come home this year. I said, when? I need to come in there and get an interview, LOL. He said, I can't say exact days, but I know
I'll be home this year. I said, how long you been gone? I'm so confused by your case. He said, actually, I have a crazy plan when I get back that I think you should know and be a part of because I'm only going to do one interview. And he said he's been gone 2.5 years. I said, I want to be a part of that plan. He said, it's honestly a bunch of suppressed evidence that was kept away from me during trial. I said, Wack told me that, but didn't say what. He said, like through trial, they keep saying it was inconclusive on the gun DNA, but I always knew I never touched the gun. So I asked my lawyer to retest it. And sure enough, I was 102% excluded completely from everything, just like I said. I said, well, why didn't you just say who did it? Doing time for something you ain't do. He said, I took the rap for Kelsey, never wanted her to go to jail, and I never wanted Megan to get hurt or anything. So in me stopping her from getting shot, I got the raw deal. Crazy how life works. And to think they made me the poster boy for the unprotection of black women, when in all honesty, I protected 2 black women, one from getting shot and one from going to jail. Never said nothing in 8 to 10 years for them to live. It's a crazy, crazy place we live in. I said, but why you ain't just say that? When I got shot, I told. And he said, I lost my mother at 11 years old. I couldn't sleep with myself. I was the reason for taking a mother away from her kid. I just couldn't do it. Tory Lanez.
He's better than me.
And again, I truly believe if Tory Lanez is innocent, he should be freed and he should be compensated for time that he was wrongly convicted. But I also believe the person who pulled the trigger, that person should go to jail. And if Meg conspired to set him up and lie on him, of course she should do time. But I'm just saying, in an instance like this, and
I don't like this long-winded explanation.
But the word conspired is so problematic because even if she didn't know, then she doesn't know. She can't say.
That's what I'm saying. So in an instance like this, we should all agree, if I'm in a situation that I did not know what happened, I shouldn't go to jail for that. Because I wouldn't want that for you. But I'm saying if the person did lie intentionally and set the other person up, she should go to jail.
Megan, you might be going to jail.
So he's been clear about how he feels about her, and he was more than comfortable with doing Tory's bidding. And the truth of the matter is that the hate comments that he receives about her are equally valuable in regards to engagement and impressions on his social media. But as you can see, he'll protect Cardi at all costs. Now, remember, we talked about this the other day when we talked about conditioning. If you keep telling somebody the same thing under certain circumstances, it sticks. And if you pay attention, you'll see, like, every time people are trying to make the argument about rap and what rap is or isn't doing, interesting enough, people just keep throwing Meg's face on it. And I'm like, of all the people, like, I seen somebody post, like, Meg and Ice Spice next to each other. And I said, y'all are disrespectful as hell. That's another story for another day. But anyway, I don't think that he should stop protecting Cardi. I think that that's the right thing to do. I don't think that it's necessary to punch down on Meg. It's kind of like, if you don't like her, just don't engage her. But people want the value that comes with her. They just don't want her to be recognized in a positive light. This is my perception, right? And in essence, the missed opportunity to cease silence proves intent. So now we are recognizing over and over that there is an active set of people that are cool with Tory, that are constantly dogpiling on Meg as a collective. Not just one-off, not just like an opinion here and there, not just like, I'm not really sure. No, real deal, like we are pushing content to allege and confuse folks. Now we got Livingston. He was talking a lot of smack. A couple months ago, everybody was like, oh no, he handled them lawyers. He this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. Let me see if I can find something to insert in here. Y'all know I like my reference points.
If she perjured herself on the stand at the criminal trial? Is that what
I wouldn't know. That would be something the prosecutors would have to answer. But that, we've rarely seen prosecutors turn back around and go for perjury charges on someone that they needed as a star witness. So I don't know. Again, I can't tell you what the truth is.
I didn't really ask you how frequently prosecutors decide whether or not they're going to charge somebody with perjury. I mean, you've been sitting here telling me your personal opinion about this trial and whether or not Miss Pete is a liar. So my question to you is, do you believe she perjured herself on the stand?
You're asking me if I think she did not tell the truth?
Yeah, that's what perjury means.
Okay, I didn't believe her. Not at all. Mm-mm. I believe.
So you believe she perjured herself on the stand?
Now, that's another, like, I don't know where they got this lawyer. Like, I don't know where they got this lawyer over there at Quinn Emanuel, but I did not want to answer to the term perjury because that's actually a legal and a criminal act. The act of perjury is a criminal act. So if I say she perjured herself, it means I fully believe that she could or should be charged with perjury. Me saying she's a liar doesn't mean the same as she perjured herself. So it's a little like they're using very little nuances, but they want to get like yes or no declarative statements that they could grab to bring to their bigger trial, which is going to be the Milagros thing, or they got other things that they probably are planning.
Right. He was going off. He thought he had it. And now, check out the new tone.
I'm in Florida. So, you know, Meg suing that blogger. I was going to pop up in court. Feel me? I just want to make sure everything good. I mean, I ain't see Meg walk since, you know what I mean, the whole thing happened. I just want to make sure she's straight. I was going to pop up to the trial. She testified today, too. But after what I seen they did Aiden, nigga, I said, I'm good. Yo, Aiden went in for a deposition. They served that nigga with an extra subpoena, took his phone, went through his messages. Yo, Rock Nation on bad timing, man. So I was going to go into court to watch Meg testify and do the fake tears and lie, you know, habitual. But I said, I'm good. I'm not trying to be nowhere with Rock Nation and them Secret Service people with an extra subpoena.
Check him out, having a whole new conversation about Rock Nation is trying to, and Rock Nation, and they want to silence him, and they wanted this, regurgitating the same garbage that is mentioned in the comment sections and so on, the same conspiracy theories. And what happens? The validation of commenters, that's equally valuable. Going back to that stand culture conversation that we was having once upon a time, right? So as I mentioned, right, the need to be right is going to lead to people hyper scrutinizing, unreasonably deducing things that don't have anything to do with each other. You know, the conspiracies of Rock Nation being Illuminati, but nobody is talking about Elon Musk being Illuminati. Like all of his money is legit and he's fine. But you know, we'll leave that one alone. So going back to what's happening with Millie. Her first few trial appearances, like they have come up, and I tell y'all all the time, like I have reason to believe I'm a bit hyper vigilant again because my environment was a little particular, if you will, and a lot of people see calmness or the presentation of calmness as a fact of calmness, and that is not actually true, right? I've definitely grown up, and you know, you see people act real cool, and it's nothing going on, and they slap somebody, right? Because this is a part of the presentation to catch you off guard. So in my purview, she doesn't look like somebody that is particularly calm or sure of what's going to happen. And I think that it's reasonable. I will give her credit, right, to the fact that she is, I want to say, optimizing to the best of her ability, because after this is all said and done, she's still going to have to make a living for herself. She's still going to have to make ends and take care of her kids and all of the things. And again, I will say that she made this bet. I'm trying not to be mean about it. She made this bet. And hopefully there is a redemption arc for her that includes her getting some help and being the better or best version of herself, right? Past this moment and past this circumstance. That's my hope. But I will acknowledge the fact that the deleted message is the gang of people that wanted to quash their depositions, the sanctions and contempt orders, and just the shared negative banter and the quantity of just bad stuff that she was saying about Meg. This really paints a very clear picture of poor intent, right? This is the most significant smear campaign I've ever seen in the history of music and music making. Like I've never seen this like this before. And this doesn't pan out well for Milagros. Like I told y'all before, if Tori would have got up and said like, nah, I said X, Y, and Z to her, and this is why she believed that, and this is why she was so passionate, there might have been some room for grace. But then there's a reality around the fact that that would also lean into the spiteful narrative, right? because you did that because this is your friend and so on and so forth, and punching down that point. I'm also going to acknowledge the fact that Jason Lee did not mention or post that Tory was held in contempt because he refused to testify, even though he was the one that reported that Tory wanted to protect 2 Black women. We'll pop that in there too. So we're watching the new narrative form that Meg is, is just a rich bully. I prefer that than the feeling the need that you could just jump, punch down, and talk smack and all of these other things. I'm one of those people that's like, yo, if you don't like something, you don't have to engage with something. But the active intention to jump into her spaces and create negative waves around her through her projects and that sort of thing, I'm like, yeah, the reputational harm for me is absolutely clear, because we can go in any space and see that people are still going off, still suggesting free Tory and all this other stuff, and still acting as though she's a terrible person that put him in harm's way. Meanwhile, he was the one that had blickied at her. And then, like, his appeal actually said, well, she knew the gun was there, so she could have just got out the way. Like, I've never seen this before in my life. But you know what? Shout out to the people that come to the internet for regurgitation and the herd effect. But all in all, I'm wishing Meg the best, and I hope that she gets out of this pocket and can get back to living her life. But I gotta acknowledge the fact that that's a tough cookie, man. Because I won't sit here and lie like I might not have. I would have been outside. I'd have been outside like snatching people up for real, especially Livingston, especially because I just know he's not tough. This is my opinion, facts. Like, I just know he's not tough. I know he was never the guy that was outside running down on nobody. And just off GP, like just off of him being extra soft, I would have been in his mouth, bro.
Everything we've talked about, bro, I've never cared about. I don't care what rapper got at me, bro, ever. But like, really, there's certain shit I really don't fuck with in my life, and I would never do. But like, I gotta sit here and act like I know I'm in America. I gotta sit here and just act like I don't fuck with certain shit. I would never like it.
Wow. I didn't realize how much frustration I felt until just now. I'm gonna get out of here. Yo, thanks for watching. I love y'all. Bye.